Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is May the 13th. I'm very happy to be with you. Thank you for all of the folks that have joined us over on Rumble, on YouTube, on X. Yeah, we had kind of a wild day yesterday. I went down to the InfoWars studio and got to hang out with Alex Jones, who is a madman, but he's our madman, and he is really, he's just as entertaining in person. Whenever he's off camera, he's smoking cigarettes and doing wild things. So I had this experience, and the thought that crossed my brain was, I might have just gone to the last newsroom in America where smoking is still an option. I don't think they're doing that in any other corporate buildings in any kind of meaningful way. So you guys could check that out if you want. It's over on X. You can find it in my timeline if you are interested. It was 3 hours. It was pretty wild. We covered all kinds of things, plenty of hype throughout. You guys know me. Like, I don't like to overhype anything that I'm saying because I just don't think it's that exciting. But Alex doesn't know how to underhype anything. So we did this little fun game. All right. So today we're going to get into a couple of things. We're going to talk about jets from Qatar. We're going to talk about climate change because why not? We're going to talk about white farmers. You're not allowed to be white and be a refugee. God forbid you look like the majority of this country and also speak English. That means you're not a refugee. That means you need to be killed. That's a political leftist statement. A bunch of wins that the Trump administration is basically getting, and they're causing the left to melt down over them. So they've got to do that. They got to talk about some controversy or scandal. And apparently Ben Shapiro, Laura Loomer, and Mark Levin are all MAGA types. I feel like some of them are not. But what they left out is that they're all Jewish. And so that seems anti-Semitic coming from the CNN folks. They don't seem to worry about that kind of thing. Genocide only happens if you're killing off Muslims, apparently, in Gaza. I don't know, man. A mess of things. So we'll get into all that in just a second. And today is going to be a very sarcastic and hopefully a little bit humorous show for you all. We'll get into the news after we talk about this from our sponsor, Silent. Silent is a company that I trust keeping my stuff knocked out from the RF frequency issues. This is a dry bag that I use to keep my phone in. I've got two different things. I got their sleeve and I got their dry bag. I've also got their backpack sitting behind me. If you go to slnt.com/Kyle, you will see the dry bag that I recommend. I've actually got the one with the external pocket, and I don't like it quite as much because it can catch on things. Check out their dry bag. It's like $275. They're not cheap, but you get 15% off when you use my promo code KYLE, and it does really work. It's also TSA proof. Those guys don't know how to deal with it. If you've ever worried about your laptop or your cell phone or anything else getting screwed up by water when you're traveling, and for some reason I always travel when it's raining, that's a nice little feature. And then additionally, it also will stop people like the government, big tech, corporate America, criminals, anybody that is out there trying to compromise your privacy and your safety by getting access to your devices through Bluetooth, through Wi-Fi, through the actual RF signal that comes in over the cell phone. There are 4 different bands that they can access your devices. If you guys want to block all of the RF technology that is in your cell phones and in your tablets, in your laptops, check out my friends over at Silent. You can go silent today at slnt.com/KYLE. You'll save 15% with that promo code that tells us that it's working and that we sent you along. You're also going to get free shipping on qualified orders. You'll stay ahead. You'll be able to protect your own privacy. And like I said, it actually tends to be TSA proof. I have now had 2 TSA officers not know how to access my Silent backpack because it's a roll top. It's just like this one here, actually. I'll just go bride's screen for a second. It's like this. You just roll it and then you buckle it at the top. On the backpack, you buckle it on the bottom. And they seriously couldn't figure out how to get into it. So whatever. Check them out. Great company, good people, good product, actually works. That's a big deal. If you get a cheaper one, it probably will not. All right, let's get into today's news. I'm so happy that my stuff is now working. Yesterday, we couldn't get the promo reel to run. We couldn't get the title card there to punch out. And I really need that music to get started. And I need to get started because I was thinking we should get started with a little bit of a softer side of the news. climate change is a big issue here for those of us, the Kyle Seraphin Show. I'm being sarcastic, but you can tell that already. Climate change is something that I worry about constantly. I wake up in the middle of the night and I wonder, what if there's too much carbon? What if there's too many people? What if we need to depopulate? So what if we could find some group of people that we could just listen to that would tell us how things should be? Is there anybody that would set an example? And there is, it turns out. Thank God for NPR, which we fund with our tax dollars, and Donald Trump has been trying to pull some money away from. This country is slowing their climate action. Boo, say the leftists. But the capital city of this country is stepping up. Yay! And what is this country? It's obviously an analogy. It is obviously something that we can all get behind because so many of us have the same experience as living in Austria, a tiny landlocked European nation with a beautiful downtown that looks nothing like any American city. Vienna is leading the way. Their city hall and their stone towers and gargoyles remind visitors of a neo-Gothic era. Children who come here say, oh, it looks like Hogwarts. Interesting. We're going to be talking about some of the people that come from these places, like, old world that brought these things to the new world. And then when the people decide that they don't like what's going on, if the folks turn about and turn on the folks that built all those things, they're obviously the bad guys. Anyhow, we're going to get into the Boer situation, the Afrikaner thing in a bit. Vienna began acquiring all new buildings. Oh, good. And requiring solar panels on the beautiful old things that they had because they thought, here's a gorgeous city that people spend lots of money to come and visit. They want to go and see remnants of a classic civilization. So maybe we could make it look like crap by putting a whole bunch of solar panels and green energy. The panels aren't visible from the ground. They just look hideous from the air, so people who are flying drones can see them. They try to maintain the building's 19th century look. Why would they do that? Why would they care about the 19th century look? Oh, maybe because it was aesthetically pleasing and it was there was a value in that. And when you think about the big polluters in the world, I know most of you are thinking about Austria. I know I am. I think, what is Austria doing to fix climate change? That's what I think about every day when I wake up. I put my feet into my slippers. I go and I start the coffee pot and then just go, is Vienna really going to lead the way, or are we just going to have to settle for what the rest of Austria is doing? Listen, the only thing that I have out of Austria in my house or that I care about out of Austria is a tea set that my parents found at Goodwill and sent for my kids. It's probably not appropriate for their age bracket, and some Glocks. I have a fair number of those. Many of you guys may realize I'd say that I do not like Glock firearms, which I don't, because I think they're ugly and I think they're uncomfortable to hold. And yet I have 100,000 plus reps on them. So I own almost exclusively Glock handguns at this point, and I'm probably going to just get rid of all the other ones because that's what I shoot best. But that's my only connection to Austria. It's probably the only connection most Americans have to Austria. If we were going to go, I actually did some weird look where I wanted to see what the percentage of Americans are that identify as white. You'll see why in a little bit when we talk about this white majority country, which we still technically are if you go according to the 2020 census, to the point of about 70% of America has an identifier as white. That includes white Hispanics. I don't know. And when I was looking into that, it was like it was telling you the breakdowns from the different countries. At 2020, I think they said something like 50 million Americans claim an English ancestry, which is a lot. In any case, the only thing I carry from this place, I don't know why NPR decided this. Again, this was one of their top headlines. It just shows you how goofy and captured our media is, that they cannot look at what's going on in this country and say, yeah, the reason that people think of Austria and Vienna as being a beautiful place or being a place to visit or that there's anything special about it is because of the thing that it has, this sort of history that's been there for a very long time. And so they do everything they can to fight against that history. And at the same time, they also want to try to praise them for putting freaking solar panels on the roofs. I don't know. Maybe the visit to InfoWars, maybe it's thinking about Austria and the fact that Europeans are smokers. I saw this clip yesterday. I just wanted to share it. It's just kind of like the mood that I'm in right now. It's not even news related. But we did used to be a different kind of country. There was a conversation at our dinner table last night with my wife's aunt. And we were talking about smoking and the smoking section. We used to go and order pancakes, and there'd be some dude next to you that was, running through a pack of Camels. Now, I don't know. I'm sort of nostalgic for the smoking section. I guess that was my visit to InfoWars, watching people sit there working on on a board, like the board op is sitting there, running all the computerized audio coming in and working the video systems, but like has a cigarette. Like, I don't even like cigarettes. I actually hate cigarettes, but this made me kind of laugh. So here you go.
Sir, there's no smoking on airplanes.
I know. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Don't worry about it. I'll be quick.
Sir, if you like that, I'll have to report you to the FAA.
Stacy, do you know when the first commercial flight went smokeless?
No.
1973. And did you know that in 1969, when smoking was allowed on all flights, we put a man on the moon?
I had no idea.
Look. You know what that is? That's a remnant of a better time. But they welded it shut. And it starts with ashtrays, and it ends with all of our precious freedoms being stripped away. I remember back in the day when you got on a plane and you knew you were in for a good time. A little smoking, a little drinking. And the stewardesses, Stacy, you come from a proud tradition of blazing hot stewardesses. And now you can't do one damn thing without someone reporting you to the Department of Homeland Security. Am I right?
That's right. You listen to Don.
I had to take my pants off and nibble my Old Spice down to 3 ounces just to get on the plane, Stacy.
They made me throw out my mouthwash.
I had to give up my bath jellies.
They made me breastfeed some old man.
That's what I'm talking about. But we don't have to take it, Stacy. Like Henry David Thoreau and Rosa Parks and David Lee Roth when he left Van Halen, we can say enough. Enough injustice. And when you and I are old and gray, we can look back on this and remember when we were 30,000 feet above God's green earth and we smoked one. We smoked one for America!
Can we smoke one for America? I don't know. That was just what was in my heart after driving home, and my jacket probably needs to be dry cleaned now. And then I see MSNBC is obviously willing to smoke one for America. Politicians keep playing with the fate of the trans military rights. I don't know what is on the screen here. I don't know what this person is. That is either a very, what my sister used to call, unfortunate looking lady, or a dude who is pretending, and all of it is gross. But when I typed in trans military, I literally typed in the words trans military, and it said military transcripts. I said, no, trans military. And this is what came up. So hopefully that is actually a dude dressed up in drag and not some poor, unfortunate woman that I'm accidentally making fun of. And if you are this person, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't look that way. All right. So politicians keep playing with the fate of the trans military rights. The military ban of trans troops tells a much broader story of the current state of legal rights for trans people in the United States. What are the legal rights of trans people in the United States? They're the same as anyone else. It just turns out that you have to just follow social norms. You know, like you have a penis, you have to go to the men's room. That's just the way that it works. If you go into the ladies' room and a dad like me finds you, we will drag you out of there because our little girls are supposed to be in there. And I don't want my 7-year-old with some weirdo who looks like the person on the screen, like doing his flop out, while some lady is trying to, pee and squat in a stall. Like, this is such a dumb time. It is funny that little clip does say a lot. I recall that there used to be ashtrays in every car, whether you used them or not. They were usually full of coins if you weren't a smoker, right? That we used to see exactly that, those little ashtrays on the plane. And you try to open those things up, and at some point in time they stopped. They welded them shut. I remember being a kid and hearing the first announcements, which were something they were trying on for size because they hadn't said it before, when they were talking about, if you're smoking is now prohibited on all planes, and if you even do so in the lavatory. And now today, when people hear it, it's 30 years later, 40 years later, they hear that and they think, are people actually smoking in the lavatory? Are people going to the bathroom to smoke on a plane? They used to. They used to smoke out in the open. They used to have a smoking section on the plane. It's like there was a smoking section at IHOP. In any case, after the Supreme Court gave the Trump administration the green light earlier this week, it seems that Donald Trump is finally going to have that trans military ban. By the way, this was the norm for all of American history. If you had a gender confusion problem and you wanted to have surgeries and hormones that made you like a non-combatant, then you didn't have a right to serve in the military. In the same way as we've talked about here, if you can't do a duck walk, I don't know what the hell that has to do with anything. If your feet are too flat, if you are too nearsighted, even with the correction vision, like if you put on your glasses, you don't have a right to join. The MEPS will kick you out. That old creepy guy that's 1,000 years old and has those dirty fingers and a bunch of gloves and wants to put you know what I'm talking about. The guy who's checking your prostate. They'll disqualify you. They'll DQ you for all kinds of reasons. And mental health used to be a normal version of that. NBC, this is MSNBC. NPR, some of these groups are just completely nuts. The funniest thing is that, hold on, I put it out on Twitter. I didn't put it on a slide today, but the first thing I saw from CNN, I opened up CNN today, which I don't always start with, and they were advertising, will you sign up for our newsletter? Reliable Sources with Brian Stelter is back. And this is their pitch: misinformation, conspiracy theories, and propaganda. You know what? I'm just going to put it on the screen here. There it is. Let me just see if I can grab it. It's one of the funniest things. It was a pop-up ad trying to like sell me on this. Look at this. We'll just pull it on here. Let me just do it real loud. There, we'll do it live. Reliable Sources with Brian Stelter. Misinformation, conspiracy theories, and propaganda. You need to separate fact from fiction in a must-read newsletter. You think Brian Stelter is going to give us that? These people are crazy. And they're very upset about, like, you know, the way things are working. In fact, they're so upset about it, and they have to do these things because it does seem like for all of the pushing, and there are some narrow areas where I want to push and see policy change for this administration, there's been a number of pretty successful moves. I think they can do better on deportations. I think they can do better on all this stuff because I want to see it go faster, mostly because I want to see them move at the speed of business. That's what I voted for, a guy who claims that he's a businessman, right? That's what we heard in Donald Trump. Make good decisions, business related. CNN hates it. Imagine being on an anchor on this show right now and having to lead your Monday morning with this sort of like recap of the weekend. It's more than Joe Biden did in any 100 days that were when he was in office.
We have had a lot of news this weekend, a lot of developments for the Trump White House. The last known living American hostage in Gaza is set to be released. Progress on trade with China, this ceasefire between India and Pakistan, and now possible face-to-face talks between Zelensky and Putin for the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine. How would you assess Trump's foreign policy agenda right now and all of these moves that we've seen just really in the last, 48 to 72 hours?
Even CNN is forced to show a list of Trump's great accomplishments just...
All right, we don't need that. So CNN has to admit to it. So MSNBC has to double down on it. So MSNBC has this, which comes from the Jen Psaki, who graced our cover yesterday as the Psaki bomb. Trump polls his pick for the D.C. prosecutor. This was a reference to Ed Martin. That's because senators from the GOP didn't get in line and do what they were needing to do. Adding to a quote-unquote parade of second-term failures. In less than 4 months into his term, it looks like the president just doesn't have the juice. So saith former mouthpiece and propagandist Ginger Goebbels, a.k.a. Jen Psaki. So that's fun. She said, we're all familiar with the Donald Trump flood the zone strategy, move fast, try to upend as many things as possible, throw as much at us so that it's hard to keep up. And the president wants to make it harder for us to figure out what's real and what's bluster. And one way to cut through that is to find out what he really cares about. Blah, 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 blah. Ed Martin, top federal prosecutor in the Washington, D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office, one of the most powerful U.S. attorneys in the country. We know that because they weaponized it against J6ers. And he didn't get confirmed. They didn't even put him up for a vote. So now he's going to move in a more powerful position. On this program, we have sort of an unpopular take, I think, from people on the right, which is that Pam Bondi is not really problematic for me. I've heard a lot of people claim it. She's not my favorite person in the world. I don't know her personally. Maybe I would think differently if I knew her, but she's not the problem. She's put people in place. Maybe, Donald Trump nominated them, but she's allowed them to get into place. And they have moved a bunch of United States attorneys or assistant United States attorneys out. You had mass resignations and destruction of people that were antithetical to constitutional liberty, like departing. You had Harmeet Dillon put in as an AAG, going over to civil rights and de-weaponizing that. Now you've got Ed Martin, who's going to be in the weaponization project there to de-weaponize the DOJ. And the DOJ is the big dog. Again, the teeth of the dog look like ATF, FBI, DOJ, U.S. Marshal Service, I guess. The teeth of the dog are something else. But the actual animal is the DOJ, the policies. In fact, the deadly force policy that I used to operate under as an FBI agent came from DOJ. It was the Attorney General. In fact, all the guidelines and the case openings and the predication required, it all comes from DOJ. The COVID policy that caused me to no longer have a job came from DOJ. That was the direct line. The cabinet level position that runs the FBI is not the director. It's the Attorney General. And Pam Bondi is going to have some good people working with her, as far as I can tell. And if they want to have Jeanine, Pirro go be the interim U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C., and that's a failure, Jen Psaki says, that tells me that you're really, really digging. That's as deep as you can get, trying to find something to be upset about. So I've got a couple other stories here, and all of them sort of seem, they kind of pale in what the claim is. The other one is that Trump caved. He didn't just make a deal with China, he gave in. So let's go back a month and see what was it going to look like today? Sometimes we have a little time capsule, and I do have a time capsule from one of my favorite people, a hysterical, left-leaning, disingenuous woman from Oklahoma who now is from Massachusetts and has just taken on all of the worst things of the Northeast and made them her own. I'm talking, of course, about Elizabeth Warren. Liz Warren predicted essentially the same thing that Joe Biden predicted regarding COVID if he didn't get the shots. A winter of destruction, death, and serious illness. Well, in the same way, she predicted a sort of destruction. Your 401k and your savings would be completely destroyed and wiped out. From what I can tell, my 401k or my IRA that I have is almost gotten back up to where it started in March when it started declining, when Trump started talking about tariffs. It's not quite there yet based on the money I punched back in, but it made significant gains even yesterday. Anyway, remember, we're all going to die, basically. Here's Elizabeth Warren saying that. And no kidding, she's on Inside with Jen Psaki.
Comes in and basically starts the dumbest trade war in the history of this country. This is going to be about potentially millions of people losing their jobs. It's going to be about millions of people losing their savings, many of people losing their retirement security, and at the same time taking on even higher costs for everything they buy. So that's going to push us in potentially to foreclosures or people being pushed out of their apartments. I remember this from 2008 and how long it took us to dig our way out. And to this day, there are families, there are communities that still haven't recovered. Recessions can be all those fancy charts and graphs, but at the end of the day, people feel them. These cuts are blood money.
This
people
is what I hear
will
every
die.
time.
Let's be very
Every time
clear.
she speaks.
Senate Republicans are paying for tax cuts for the wealthy with American lives.
People need kidneys, it's sad but decreed, yet the senator's hoarding one more than she needs. I offer this bill and I hope you'll vote aye, unless of course you just want people to die. Traffic deaths have many crying with fear. Over 30,000 people are dying each year. This modest change I propose must be applied, unless of course you just want people to die. Alcohol deaths are exceeding comparisons. Black people, white people, Native Americans. We need to ban alcohol. It can't be denied, unless of course you just want people to die. Murders are bad. They have no defenders, yet many are committed by repeat offenders. I say lifetime in prison, whatever the crime, unless of course you just want people to die. So I don't have a bill or a groan to detail. I just need a short clip for my donor email. Tim, there's blood on your hands. You want people to die. That good? Cool. Tim, dinner at 5? Yeah. The car deaths I mentioned are terrible stuff. Doesn't seem one seatbelt is ever enough. You must vote for my...
You got to vote for the bill unless you want people to die. The 2-helmet bill. That was that one. That's what I hear every single time that woman talks. The reason that Trump has to get involved in a tariff thing, like what we were doing was not working. You want evidence of it? You can go over to Fox News and listen to this. This is a discussion about how the petrodollar, which is to say that all transactions were done in U.S. dollars regarding petroleum buys, it wasn't re-upped. That there was a 50-year anniversary and it bypassed, and Saudi Arabia decided they weren't going to use it anymore. They were going to open their options up. So when you are losing ground, you don't immediately just go like, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing until I run into the ground. Maybe you try something different. It's logical. It's reasonable, unless you want people to die. Anyway, here's a little discussion that was going on over Fox about the problem and why you had to try something different and why we were expecting, a little bit of economic hard times. It's normal. That's what you do. If you listen to what we said with Andy Schectman, who's a gold expert, he's a money guy, and we're sitting there talking about it, and he brought up the petrodollar, which you're going to hear about here. But also, he mentioned the major issue is that you have to crawl through the other end of a 2-mile tunnel full of feces to come out the other side. Andy Sheckman, not Andy Sheckman's talking about. He's talking about Andy Dufresne from the Shawshank Redemption. That was the analogy. That's what I keep in my head when I think about, hard times, no problem. That's expected. There's always a difficulty. There's always a belt cinching. They used to call it austerity measures. I haven't used that term, or I haven't heard that term in the main media right now, but that's what they used to call it. And they used to call it on other countries that made financially insolvent decisions for too long. And then you have to go back and claw back that resource. And of course, it costs you something, discomfort.
Putin announced this week that Russia will begin using the Chinese yuan for international payments instead of the dollar. Saudi Arabia is also in talks with Beijing to do the same thing. Speaking of Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, they're in talks with Iran as well to consider an economic alliance with China and Russia. And they can even be joining the BRIC countries, which is an acronym for these countries here, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries all have emerging economies. So what happens if our economy and the U.S. dollar are no longer the world's dominant currency? Former Assistant Treasury Secretary and host of the Monica Crowley podcast, Monica Crowley.
All right, Monica Crowley is going to talk about it. We're going to break away for 1 second and talk about our folks over at patriot-protect.com/KYLE. That's Patriot Protect. You guys can check out. Listen, we're speaking about China right now, so it's a reasonable time to talk about it. We do have significant enemies, the geopolitical enemies that are out there in the world, and they have nation-state level capabilities, including Russia and China, who just did that alliance right there. Things like their Chinese data scraping, their AI programs, DeepSeek and others have been grabbing your information. They've been using data breach capabilities to go over there and cyber attacks on U.S. infrastructure, whether it be governmental or whether it be private sector. And they take millions of Americans' information, and then they go and dump them all over the dark web to unsettle your capabilities of maintaining simple finances. That could include what they call your fulls, which is going to be your name, your email, your relatives, your addresses, your social security numbers. They can also include things like work history and personal details that other people should not know. And if they give them to cyber criminals, then they have all the things they need to target you. Either they can fake being you, or they can pretend that they are from a reputable company and scam you. And it's easier than you think. People have been scammed. It's an embarrassing thing for people to experience. And one of the reasons that you want to take your name out of that pile is because you don't want to get scammed. You don't want to catch yourself at a bad moment. These people have a very low opportunity cost for reaching out to as many as they can. This is not password leaks. We're talking about them taking all your data and then either cloning you or conning you. All right, if you guys want to get a service that can help remove you from the dark web and from the others, you can do so for about the same cost as keeping your porch light on. Again, it's patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Both my wife and I have them set up. I want to say it's something like $80 a year. It's relatively negligible. Nobody likes being in a subscription-based service, but it costs you less than what it does for Amazon. And if it saves you the average, which is $600 of scamming per year, that's the average American's experience in their lifetime, because most people won't get taken for $600. They'll get taken for like $10,000 one time every 15 years or so. So for whatever it's worth, check out something. If you guys want to look at the one we use, the link is in the show description, patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Let's go into other things that apparently could be a scam. And it's just CNN news coverage. That's just how it is. There's Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, and Laura Loomer. It's a bribe. MAGA media stars. They're MAGA media stars now. They bashed Trump's reported Qatari plane gift. So we got a little bit of controversy over whether or not Donald Trump should receive a new jet from Qatar and make that the Air Force One. There's some security concerns in that. I think it's legitimate. I think those things is that nation state actors, they want to know certain things. Are they going to just hand over a plane? Are they buying a plane that's already here? I think where it comes from, where it's been, the source, and sort of the background on that jet make a lot of difference in how this plays out. But the idea that it's a bribe, I think the entire point of a bribe is you're not supposed to see it. Maybe I misunderstood Public Corruption 101 when we had that sort of we had that ability to look into it at the Bureau. That is, in fact, a federal crime. It's a federal threat category, public corruption. Usually the goal is sort of like covert, nefarious, insidious movements where you can't see in public. Like if somebody comes up and gives you a very expensive big gift and they're someone that might want something from you, that's not really a bribe. That's usually known as a gift, particularly when it's so public and so well publicized. It doesn't stop the media from falling all over themselves to ask all the questions. They are very honest operators. They got to get really upset. So that gave Chuck Schumer an opportunity to get out and talk about it. Shapiro said that the administration's policy is far too important for this sort of activity. President Trump promised to drain the swamp. This is in fact, not draining the swamp. I guess that's a take. Said if you switch the names to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, we all be freaking out right now. That's probably true. I think that's actually true. I'm going to give you a Chuck Schumer. I'm going to give you a little bit from the questions that Donald Trump asked. I'm going to give you some of his answers while he was doing kind of a little quick huddle on the current Air Force One, from what I can tell. And then I'm going to give you a reading from a former Air Force pilot who was an aide to Bill Clinton and has been someone that I listen to when it comes to aviation type stuff. His name is Buzz Patterson. So I'm going to read his take on this. He made a funny quip about chemtrails, so it popped into my head. Let's start with Chuck Schumer. Donald Trump has nothing but losses. You know, these guys are really mediocre actors. He doesn't seem particularly passionate about this, so I wonder who writes these things for him.
On tariffs. Early this morning, it was reported that Donald Trump caved to Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party with virtually nothing to show for American workers. Donald Trump has changed his mind once again on his tariffs with a new deal with China to pause most tariffs for 90 days. Sadly, it looks like China has once again gotten the better of Donald Trump. They've hardly had to give up a thing. It's another example of Donald Trump's chaos. Trump has one policy for his tariffs on one day, a different policy the next day. One day he's pretending to be a tough guy with China. The next day he's caving to China and getting little, if anything, in return. Who knows what Trump's tariff policy will be in the next 90 days? If I were a business person, I wouldn't count on what he's doing or what he says today that probably won't be in effect in the next week or the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, or people could just look and see that people want to not have a lot of cost of operating and doing business, and the Chinese did come to the table, and that you had our Treasury Secretary in Switzerland negotiating almost immediately, but that's referred to as caving, the fact that the Chinese showed up at the bargaining table when they hadn't done it previously. And in fact, they revealed some information talking about how they could completely ignore Joe Biden, and that was something they had no problem doing because Joe Biden was barely sentient. And so they just knew that he wasn't going to stand up and enforce anything. Donald Trump, kind of more of a wild card, even at the same age. We're a similar age, much different animal in the White House. That's been pretty obvious by the way it goes. Okay, Trump was asked to talk about this. They asked him some questions about this plane. I'm going to play you a little clip from a press conference. I'm going to play you him talking about it. And then, like I said, we're going to go to Buzz Patterson's sort of take on it, which I think is reasonable. I think you can have both concerns about security, but the idea that it's a bribe or that it's something that is going to change, you know, in such a public way, you offer that gift. What are you going to get from the Qataris? Not to mention, Qatar gives money all over the place. They are all over the place on the left side, too. So for them to like clutch their pearls, the political left crying about this is very disingenuous. They give tons of money to public universities, which all focus on lefty things. Essentially, Qatar seems to just try to buy themselves out of trouble because they've got really troubling policies on human trafficking. They have all kinds of like, you know, terroristic sympathies and or support and or just tolerance thereof. You know, the world's a complicated place. There's no simple answers to this. Here's Trump talking about it in this press conference.
On Qatar, has Qatar asked for anything in exchange for that $400 million luxury jumbo jet? And how can the American people be so sure that they will not in the future?
Well, I think what happens with the plane is that, you know, we're very disappointed that it's taking Boeing so long to build a new Air Force One. You know, we have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to the new plane of the equivalent, you know, stature at the time, it's not even the same ballgame. You look at some of the Arab countries and the planes they have parked alongside of the United States of America plane. It's like from a different planet. And it's close to 40 years old, might be more than 40 years old now. And we, when I first came in, I signed an order to get it built. I took it over from the Obama administration. They had originally agreed. I got the price down much lower. And then when the election didn't exactly work out the way that it should have, a lot of work was not done on the plane because a lot of people didn't know. They made change orders that were so stupid, so ridiculous. And it ended up being a total mess, a real mess. And when I came back, I said, by the way, what's going on with the Boeings that are coming in? Well, sir, they're way behind. And they are. They're way behind. They were way behind. Another mess that I inherited from Biden.
You can't help it. He just takes shots. I think they're well-deserved in this case. Folks, we're just going to remind you right now, if you're watching over on Rumble, make sure you like the video. If you're doing the same thing over on YouTube, it's youtube.com/@KyleSeraphin. Like the video. If you're watching on X, same deal. Like it, share it if you like. We appreciate that. It's a one-man show over here. So if you guys want to support us, you can do it over on Locals. Locals is KyleSeraphin.com. That will take you to the main page. We have it's free to sign up. You can be part of the discussion. We have the community over there. Really nice people that will have like honest and fair-minded discussions with you. And if you want to share the program on Spotify, which is the easiest way to get the audio, but also the video if you want to like dance back and forth between them, it's KyleSeraphinShow.com. Easy things. You can send a link over to folks. Like I said, like and share wherever you're at. Like and subscribe, rather, that is. I keep listening to this stuff and just laughing about how there's this funny contrast. We're going to go to Joe Biden in a second, too, because apparently it's now cool to just take a punch at Joe Biden. But the plane problem is not something new. He's been talking about this thing for 2 months, basically since he got into office. He was bringing up, he was like, look, we have a problem. Here he is doing a gaggle. This is February 20th. It's just a little news flashback going back 2 months ago and speaking about things like the same problem. We've got a contract. The contract, they've basically returned and said it's going to cost more money than it should. And Trump's like, I don't know. And then somebody said, hey, what if we gave you one? If you think Qatar doesn't want favorable relationship with the United States, I'm sure they do. But you can't do it. You can't do a bribe that overtly. That's the obvious thing to me. And then the other obvious point is that it's going to go to DoD contractors who are going to basically tear the plane apart and rebuild it in the image of an Air Force One, because our average planes don't do all the things that Air Force One does.
No, I'm not happy with Boeing. It takes them a long time to do, Air Force One. We gave that contract out a long time ago. It's a fixed price contract, and I'm not happy with the fact that it's taking so long. And we may do something else. We may go and buy a plane or get a plane or something, but I'm not happy with the fact that it's taking Boeing so long. There's no excuse for it. And they had a fixed price contract. I made that deal. And now they're losing a lot of money, and they'd like to see if they could, up the price. But I make fixed price deals. I don't like time and material deals.
So his statement is really straightforward. He's like, I tried to negotiate on behalf of the American people. That actually makes a lot of sense to me, because all of these government contractors function on the idea that we're going to come out here and make a bid. We're going to low bid you. Then after a period of time, we're going to come back and tell you, well, we can't finish the work, but you're already invested with us. This is a really, really bad business practice. The U.S. government basically falls for it every single time. We need now more time and materials because as time has passed and because of inflation and because of like all the different things. So they try to build these clauses in. If he said he had a fixed price deal and they're not delivering on it, all he's doing is building leverage. This is Buzz Patterson's take. Like I said, he's a retired commercial airline pilot. He was an Air Force pilot as well. Worked in the Clinton administration. He's a Republican. He says the Qatari B-747 was built in the United States by Boeing. They are offering a newer 747 to replace the current 2 Air Force Ones that have been flying around for over 40 years. They're tired and need to be replaced. The wing based at Andrews, which also purchased the aircraft from other countries in the past, are currently flying our VP and our senior government officials around. This is not a new thing. In other words, obtaining an aircraft that you buy someone else has used is not new. Qatar's offering the jet to the United States military, not to Donald Trump specifically, and the DoD contractor based in the United States. In fact, my dad, who's a retired Air Force general, used to work for them. They are not, he said they are not unironically also working to upgrade the FAA technology as we speak. We know about Newark and other places, Philadelphia and so on, that have problems. They'll get the aircraft, and they will perform all of the security and the installation of the systems that Air Force One requires to safely move our president around the world. The Qataris are not the ones who are going to do that work. You and I will pay for that, but not the $400 million that the basic jet would normally cost. So that's the savings there. It's still going to cost a ton of money to get this thing done, and it's going to be American money. He said, I could tell you exactly what is required to modify the Air Force One for safe flight with the president, but that's actually top secret, and then I'd have to kill you. Now come at me about chemtrails, which made me laugh. So all of those things make me happy. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. So in the exact same press conference that he's having this discussion, he got moved into the scandal du jour, which is that white people cannot be refugees. So you can kind of see when you watch the media sort of pivot. They're like, can we make a bribery thing stick? And they're like, it's a public gift. The American people are going to go and like basically take the thing apart. What about security? Can we do security? Because there's multiple stories. It's the lead story on every single news site that he's going to get this jet. And it was yesterday as well. And I just kind of wanted to sit on it for a minute and just say, okay, what do sane voices say? And how many bribes do you know where somebody comes and offers the money up front? Again, over and over again, when I see the media crying about something, I'm almost always interested in like what's the backstory and who's the one that's crying. And we can always see it's people on the left. So they decided to pivot immediately. And the story, the second biggest story today, that's why our thumbnail has what it is. It has white Afrikaners from South Africa and a jet. The jet is a scandal, and allowing white people as refugees into the country is a scandal. For all of the reasons that they are allowed in, those are all the same things that if you switched out brown, black, or any indigenous population of any country, you would immediately have leftist sympathies. But because they are white in skin color, that's a problem. And they speak English. God forbid English-speaking South African people who are being murdered, who have a government that is doing the thing that our asylum policies were actually created for. For those of you that recall, let's remember an earlier time, back when there was smoking in restaurants, smoking on airplanes, we had a thing called asylum laws where people would abscond from their country, sometimes with classified secrets. We would see Russians or Chinese or North Koreans land a military jet, for example, on a U.S. Air Force base or on a naval carrier somewhere, or they would come in and they would drop into the United States and they would immediately seek asylum. Because if they went back to the country they came from, the nation itself, the country that they came from, that government would kill them or imprison them forever. So they were seeking protection from not sort of like amorphous, like crime or bad financial systems. They were worried about the explicit policy under law from the nation that they came from. That's what our asylum laws were set up to do. And that's what's actually codified in there. And it turns out there was a law that was signed on the books in January of 2025. It's been batted around for several years now in South Africa. But in January of 2025, it was codified into law. It's called, I think, the Expatriation Act. I've got it sitting over here for a second. Let me look at the name. Yeah, the Expropriation Act of 2024 was actually signed into, or went into existence and went into action in January 2025, from what I can gather. And it's something that is supposed to undo all the wrongs. It's a reparations type thing for apartheid, which was ended, I want to say, in the 80s. My numbers are not perfect on this. South Africa is not my major focus in the world. But what I have been seeing is a progressive build of danger for people in this scenario. So Donald Trump's administration in February, because I have the executive order up here, this is not new, these are just the first people to come in, on February 7th actually signed an executive order addressing egregious actions of the Republic of South Africa, and nowhere in there does he mention the term white. And I only say that because we're going to see the word white in every single headline by the left-leaning media, all of them. And of course, they got to talk about it at the White House. This is the same press conference where he's talking about the plane. Here he is talking about that. This is from Right Side Broadcast Network.
Who claim discrimination in their home country are heading to the United States, right, where your administration is going to welcome them as refugees. Now, this comes as you've halted virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and war from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed. And we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of. But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa. And the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible.
That seems really straightforward, by the way. I like that Trump calls out the thing that if it were the other way around, if you held the mirror up and did the mirror test that I like to talk about, then you would know immediately that it was wrong. And you would never have the left-wing media stop crying about it. Let's take a quick break over here. buddies over at Mad Hat Jerky. We just got multiple shipments. My wife actually took it away from me before I got a hold of it. Usually I try to like sequester some in the office. If you guys want to get some of the best jerky in America, MattHatJerky.com. I don't know why I put two hats. It's Matt with two T's. It's hat with one T. I got to fix my lower third down there. MattHatJerky.com/KYLE. Use the promo code Kyle to save like 20%, I believe, on your first order there. Check out the ones you like. The ones I like are the garlic and the black truffle. I'm not confident that black truffle is actually a real thing, but whatever equals black truffle when it comes to flavor, it's quite good. It's something that my kids love. My baby will eat it. She's under 2 years old and she'll eat jerky. My 4-year-old sometimes used to only eat jerky. We can never get any protein into him. It's a really like high quality tasting product, and you can get USDA prime beef if you want to do that. It's like $1 more per bag. It's worth it in my opinion. So if you guys, you know you're on budget, but check it out. But yeah, all 3 of the 12-ounce bags that I bought were sequestered immediately. They came in the mail. I had one of my kids carry them back in, and then they went away. And I no longer have access to them. So maybe I'll be able to get some later on. It's actually really tasty stuff. And every time I try it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I like this. Like I don't always eat jerky, but it's a really good snack for these kind of things. MattHatJerky.com/KYLE. I've seen a couple of you guys put some orders in, so that's very cool. Also, thanks to all of you guys that are hanging out in the chat. Once again, we have a live and vigorous chat that goes on a regular basis. I don't know why you guys are talking bad about my wife in there for stealing my jerky. She's allowed to. That's her role. You don't say, damn my wife. What's wrong with you people? And I am not a jerky bandit, but I see all of you out there on YouTube. We see all of you on Rumble. Thanks for those of you who are participating in our YouTube experiment. Make sure you're liking this video as we go on. We're going to keep moving forward. I have this little bit here, which is going to show CNN, I guess. It's a CNN clip of them just overtly doing racism because that's what they have to do. They want to talk about how America's still really bad. Isn't it amazing? All the refugees can come here and they all want to come here because America's so great. But the minute that you start saying like, and also we'd like to have some people that are being killed off by their government. Actually, should I put this on the screen? I guess I should. I think I have a picture of the, we actually have it. I'm searching. I guess not. I thought I put it on here. Yeah, there it is. Every single headline, white South Africans. White South Africans. Those are 2 different news stories. One's from NBC, one's from CBS. It's all white South Africans. That's not what it actually says in the executive order. It's just, I'll read it to you. It says, by the power vested in me as the president, by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, I hereby order as follows. Section 1, purpose. In shocking disregard for the citizens' rights, the Republic of South Africa recently enacted the Expropriation Act 13 of 2024 to enable the government of South Africa to seize ethnic minority Afrikaner agricultural property without compensation. This act follows countless government policies designed to dismantle equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, and the hateful rhetoric and government actions fuel disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners. In addition, South Africa has taken aggressive positions toward the United States and its allies, including Israel, but not Hamas. Accusing Israel, not Hamas, of genocide in the international courts and reinvigorating its relationships and relations with Iran to develop commercial, military, and nuclear arrangements. The United States cannot support the government of South Africa's Commission on Rights violations. That's really straightforward. That shouldn't even be negotiable that you would support this in general, as a general rule. That's why we have CNN, though, so they can go ahead and pick the 20 on the 80-20 argument. And here is a lady dressed up in, like, I guess what are Africa-y colors. She's a woman who's educated in the United States, and she speaks articulately in English. She doesn't sound anything like the South Africans, but she has a lot of feelings, I guess, because they look somewhat like her.
Okay. So if you think about the history of South Africa, it being under an apartheid system, where I think it is 80% of the population that are Black Africans only own 4% of the land. That is because they were put in shanty towns and moved into areas where they had no rights. And so 30 plus years ago, they went through the apartheid system ended, and they reformed their constitution under the great leader of Nelson Mandela. And that allowed for a racial reconciliation, one that this country has yet to do. But South Africa did it, and they reformed their constitution, and part of that is that the people who are native to that land deserve their rightful land back. That is not what the Afrikaners actually want to have happen, which are the white Africans, and so who are not originally from Africa, who colonized South Africa also. And so that is what they are saying is discrimination. Now, if the Constitution in South Africa is discriminatory, they have their checks and balances in that land just like we do. And that is for them to, so if the Afrikaners don't actually like the land, they can leave that country.
That is a hell of a statement, y'all. They're not from that land, although they were born there, and their parents were born there, and their parents' parents were born there, and probably their parents' parents' parents were born there. They can leave, and they can go back to Germany, is one of the things she actually indicates, or Holland. Wow. That's a strong position to take. Does anyone else want to try to do the Liberia experiment again, where you just like wholesale export people? You just voluntarily let them go back? Go back to Africa? Is that really a thing? By the way, did you hear her praise? She said they actually did reparations, which we haven't done. Let me show you what that looks like when you get people who didn't build the civilization that they're living in. Because I actually have no favorable feelings for Africa. Like, I had a really nice guy that I used to swim with when I was a kid. He was South African. He was one of the most polite people I've ever met. White guy, you know. Didn't sound anything like this. This is a chant with what looks like maybe 50,000 people. I'm trying to estimate the stadium size. 50,000 people cheering and jumping, talking about kill the farmers, kill the Boers. Another word, B-O-E-R, right? Go kill the ethnically white people that live in South Africa. This is a strong take from that lady on CNN. Has she seen these videos? Yeah, that's catchy. Kill the Boer, kill the farmer, shoot to kill, ba ba. Now, lest you think that be taken out of context and it's some sort of a song, which of course it is. How about the guy who was saying it in a sit-down interview? He's not talking about killing white people. I mean, except when he is.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying to you, we've not called for the killing of white people, at least for now. I can't guarantee the future.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd understand somebody watching that, especially as it gets shared on Twitter, they freak out. It sounds like a genocidal call.
Cry babies. Cry babies.
I'm not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now.
I can't give you a guarantee of the future, especially when things are going the way they are.
Subtext.
Especially if things are going the way they are, there will be a revolution in this country, I can tell you now.
We are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now. That means at some future date, we may call for the slaughter of white people. Is that correct?
Let's deal with that at that future date. I don't know what's going to happen.
So you're saying you are not ruling out that in the future, you may very well call for the slaughter of white people?
It may not be me.
It could be somebody else who says it. I would just agree with it because that's what he says. Okay. And then you get these things. Western Lensman has a pretty good little mashup here. It reminded me of people coming here, remember, seeking asylum. Remember that asylum seeker was the previous term before migrant. Before that, it was illegal immigrant or undocumented person. And then it was illegal immigrant. Before that, it was illegal alien, which is the actual legal statute. Yeah, so we've had a pretty interesting evolution. So let's talk about the so-called, asylum seekers. My mother-in-law has asylum seekers that she's constantly trying to help, and good on her. We'll talk about what that looks like in a second. This little mashup reminded me of those quote-unquote asylum seekers coming to the United States. On the left side of the screen, what you're going to see are people from South Africa who recently were able to take advantage of this executive order. On the right side of the screen, you're going to see people down on the Texas border who are also attempting to take advantage of the kindness of the Biden administration. And here we go. Okay, so we got some American flags. We got little kids. They look a lot like my little kids. Maybe I feel sympathetic because little kids who are wearing onesies and kids who are holding plastic American flags and guys who have sunglasses on their head the way that I wear them, or a plaid shirt, guy with a beard standing there, one dude wearing all American jumpsuit. That's a good look. kid with a pacifier hanging out. On the other side of the screen, we got people ripping down our barbed wire fences, a bunch of armed National Guardsmen, and they're getting overrun. Oh, they're getting overrun, and all of our soldiers have been knocked out of the way so that these assholes can get up here to the fence to try to break into our country when they have no right or authorization to do it. Now we got men on the wrong side of the fence. So that's a thing. And then back over here to the flags, I see more flag waving and just like regular dudes hanging out with their kids. That is an interesting and kind of staggering contrast, I feel like. How about you? You wonder how this stuff happens. Why do people operate this way? Something like this in the liberal mindset, I found this to be somewhat fascinating. This is Melanie Phillips. She's listed as being a journalist and an author. I don't think she's wrong about this, so let's listen to maybe why that would be.
The Western liberal mind conceives of itself as being good because it's liberal. The Western liberal tells him or herself, I'm a good person because I'm liberal, and I'm liberal because I'm a good person, which means that I believe in things like the brotherhood of man, conscience and compassion, looking after the wretched of the world, the poor and the wretched of the world, standing up against abuses of power. These are all good things, and that's why I'm a liberal. And I'm a liberal because of all these good things. So, one of the expressions of my goodness and my liberalism is that I support the Palestinian Arabs, who I think are an oppressed people, and they are oppressed by the Israelis, who have taken their land away from them, and they are oppressing them. Now, every part of that, in my view, is a lie. But put that to one side. This is what the liberal progressive thinks. And the liberal progressive thinks that supporting the Palestinians is therefore something that makes the liberal progressive a good person. October 7 happened, and suddenly you have a situation in which the people that the liberal progressive has supported as being oppressed, and everything they do is a legitimate defense or resistance against oppression, suddenly we can see that those people have turned into the most bloodthirsty savages that could ever be imagined. Not just people who kill, but who slaughter in a sadistic, barbaric, debauched and depraved fashion that people can't imagine.
You can use every single thing she just said there about what happened when people got power in South Africa as well, and what we've seen happen is that they've basically taken over the government, which is what that was fair. They were representative. And then they basically voted for retribution. I've been watching this for a couple of years. Some of you may have as well. It used to be something that was always possible to watch over on YouTube, and then it sort of went away. But the problem didn't stop. You've seen the rows of the drone footage of crosses that just line the highway of farmers who've been killed for their lands, and people have overrun it. And what do they do with it? Do they know how to run it? Or are they going to all starve? I think 20 years from now, you're going to see that South Africa, if they continue this path, which I'm sure they will, based on the things we're seeing, they're going to end up like Somalia. Maybe it'll take 40 years. But in my lifetime, it's pretty likely we're going to see South Africa become a failed state if they continue these policies. And there's no real obvious instinct why they would stop. Here's just a little clip from the State Department. This is State Department propaganda videos, so very clearly pro, U.S. policy. And yet, these people look pretty familiar to me. They look an awful lot, like I said, like walking through my neighborhood. This is what you might see. It turns out they speak our language, which is really helpful. And I don't have any problem with them coming in at this point. It's not hypocritical.
Welcome to
Here,
the
we'll
United
just listen.
States of America. A lot of you, I think, are farmers, right? When you have quality seeds, you can put them in foreign soil and they will blossom, they will bloom. And we are excited to welcome you here to our country where we think you will bloom, and we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children, and then when we will benefit alongside you.
All right. Again, yeah, that's State Department propaganda. It is. And yet they're not wrong. And the deputy, I think it's the deputy undersecretary, is talking about his family's own history, escaping from the Holocaust, coming in from Europe, escaping actual governmental oppression, the thing that asylum was set up to do. It's just a good reminder. Some of you guys in the chat are mentioning guns, so we will talk about guns because you know me, we're not going to go away from that. This is the two contrasts. Number one, the Trump administration is going to end deportation protections for Afghans. That's what CBS pushes back with. So they're very, very upset because they're going to talk about the brown people that came here. By the way, the brown people that came here just jumped on planes and were unvetted. That's a Biden administration legacy. And as someone who saw, let's say, camps of 10,000, 2 of those that were in my AOR, my area of responsibility when I worked for the FBI. We had 10,000 at Fort Bliss. We had 10,000 at Holloman Air Force Base. I've said it here many times, but I'm telling you, there's nothing American about those people. There's nothing even remotely Western or first world about the people that came here. There were some that were of significant value to the American citizens that worked with the American government over in Afghanistan for the 20 years that they were there. Then there was some, like a huge chunk of them, that were just shitting in the desert. They were walking outside the road, and we drove past, and my buddies who have been in conflict zones, whether it be in Africa or whether it be in the Middle East or whether it be in Afghanistan, were like, dude, we just imported what Afghanistan smells like and looks like in an urban area, because these people were walking off into the desert of New Mexico and off Fort Bliss near El Paso and just crapping in the desert or crapping in the U.S. Things. I went through their tents. They were disgusting. They were god-awful disgusting. And that's not how they were built. Even the Army and the Air Force, you know, whatever you want to say, the enlisted people did a decent job putting these things together, or they were probably contractors. It didn't start with feces on the ground. It's had feces on the ground because people just stand and poop where they are because they have no business being in a civilized nation like that. So, you know, Trump's very bad and racist. And then let's go ahead and pivot over here. This is really funny. A new book is coming out where Biden aides discussed using a wheelchair in the second term. This is coming from a left-leaning source. I can't remember which one it is specifically. I think it was NPR, but I could be wrong. In any case, the new book discussing this is quite funny. Actually, sorry, this is CNN. I've got a fun clip of Amy Klobuchar versus Amy Klobuchar talking about the Biden administration and the 2020 version of this. So the 2020 hindsight, that is. Here is a little taste of Amy Klobuchar 2025 up front, and then going a little review to see what it was like. Remember, she ran against Joe Biden in the primary. So she knows all about what a good guy he was. He was so fit that they needed to put him in a wheelchair, possibly.
Would the party have had a better chance of winning in 2024 had President Biden dropped out sooner?
You know, everything we look at in a rearview mirror after you lose an election, yes, we would have been served better by a primary. But we are where we are. We're not on the History Channel right now.
You know, concerns have been growing for quite some time within your party about President Biden's ability to win a second term. The latest person to express this, Ezra Klein of the New York Times, who said this week, quote, he is not up for this. Senator, what is your reaction to that stark assessment?
My reaction is, as someone who ran against Joe Biden, as someone who has spent significant amount of time with Joe Biden, that he is up for this job. And I was with the president for over an hour and talked about so many things, domestic, international. He was focused. His recall was good.
Do you think it's time to pass the torch?
Again, I'm a believer in President Biden.
Yeah, that was 14 months ago. Remember back when Joe Biden was actually training for Olympic gymnastics, he was dunking basketballs over the head of Kobe Bryant, and he was doing all the things that nobody could imagine a man his age was doing. The same guy that couldn't just stop and stand still on a flippant bicycle who fell over and almost had an aneurysm. That guy. In any case, it's a good reminder. They brought in a lot of these problems. They had no problem bringing in, quote unquote, asylum seekers and refugees, but suddenly because the people now are, quote unquote, white, even though it's not mentioned in the EO, that's a big issue. It's a good reminder that a government would be more than happy, particularly if it was run by the right people, to come out and kill you. We've proven that over and over again, that it's just serving its own interest. Here's a good reminder. This is from the folks over at Gun Owners of America. I've got a buddy who works with them on a legal front. They're talking about an issue. I want to kind of at least hit the reconciliation bill that's going through the Ways and Means right now, which does actually do something. It's just not everything we want regarding guns and the National Firearms Act of 1934. They're looking at scaling it back, and I think that's really interesting.
The House Ways and Means Committee has released their bill language before their markup tomorrow, Tuesday the 13th, and it does not include the Hearing Protection Act or the SHORT Act, bills that remove suppressors, SBRs, SPSs, and AOWs from the National Firearms Act. The bill does nothing to protect gun owners from the unconstitutional registration of their firearms. Now, we've been working behind the scenes for the past year to get these provisions into the budget reconciliation package. The current text only includes a lowering of the taxes on suppressors, but does nothing on the registration paperwork. It also does nothing to protect pistol brace owners, meaning that a future anti-gun administration could still easily weaponize the NFA against gun owners. So please, call the House Ways and Means Committee at 202-225-3625 and demand that they include the Hearing Protection Act and the SHORT Act in their markup language.
Yeah.
This is the best chance we've ever had.
All right. So that's not a bad idea, and I avow that message, and by all means, reach out to your representatives and try to move forward like positive gun things. What they have put in there is not terrible. This is section 11203 or 2030. It's the reduction of the excise tax on firearm silencers, and it says that it will reduce the tax down for weapons that are being transferred as what are they called? AOWs, also known as any other weapons, down to a $5 tax instead of a $200, and that there's a $0 firearm transfer tax for silencers. So it would actually still make you register with NFA the way that you do currently in your trust and everything else, but it would take it from a $200 tax down to a $0. That may, in fact, open up the thing. You wonder how much of it is the silencer industry trying to keep this thing regulated, because the minute that silencers are no longer listed, and suppressors is the same thing as silencers, the minute they're no longer listed on the National Firearms Act, there's going to be a lot of money and competition to be able to go out there and reduce the price. So some of the current suppressor manufacturers probably enjoy the fact that they have that manufacturing license specific from the government to build these things as kind of a restricted item. I can actually see that being the case. They're probably caving some interest. We're going to do a little bit about guns as our palate cleanse, so we're about to wrap up with that. But I did want to cover that because I think it's useful. Even if we lose and don't have the Hearing Safe Protection Act, which is basically getting rid of taking these things off the National Firearms Act, we still win if they take it down to zero. Like, that's an incremental step. I'll take a win. I'll take a small win over no win at all. That's the thing about politics. You're never going to get everything you want. But if you guys want to go out there and agitate with your elected representatives, by all means do so, and do so with the blessing of our program, because you guys know, I think I've got about 14 suppressors, 14 or 15, something like that. I think if you shoot without a suppressor anymore and you have a choice to shoot suppressed, you're kind of a jerk. I didn't used to think that way, but I do today. So there you go. Anyhow, that's what we got. We're going to do some more stuff tomorrow. I hope you guys will join us. See, I did have this. I did have the thing. This is the actual EO that President Trump put out from February 7th, talking about the Afrikaners. I knew I had it. All right. Make sure you support the program by sharing it. Make sure you guys are following wherever you're watching, whether it be on Rumble, whether it be on X, whether it be on YouTube. We appreciate all of those things. If you guys have not seen our little experiment, you can go over to locals and see KyleSeraphin.com. Scroll down and you'll see the experiment where I open the books and tell you what the back end of Rumble and YouTube look like and why we're looking at YouTube for a little bit. It's actually starting to grow, and the percentages are staggering how much fewer views we get over on YouTube and still the revenue actually does. It costs you nothing to watch over there. And if you guys are interested in doing so, I think that their platform is actually more robust. It's unfortunate. I want Rumble to work, but I don't think it does work for us as well as we'd hope it. Anyhow, check it out. Again, KyleSeraphin.com, KyleSeraphinShow.com, all of those things. Let's get into a good palate cleanse about guns, because, man, if that's not what this country's all about, I don't want to be here. Here's Matt from America talking about the Second Amendment.
What shall we discuss next? What is the second most important principle of our nation?
Guns.
Excuse me?
Guns.
I don't hate that. Well, I do. It's ridiculous. Sir, what is your name?
Matt.
Matt what?
Matt, don't you worry about it.
Well, Matt, what will posterity say of us if the second right we enshrine in this document is simply guns?
That we don't play.
That's true. Damn, that's actually kind of sick. Yes. No. The idea is ludicrous.
Wait, now hold on. I mean, we did just make a law that said anyone can say whatever crazy stuff they want, right? Maybe this gun thing would kind of balance that out.
Bingo.
Okay, yes, but by the same token, wouldn't having a gun embolden people to say crazy stuff as well?
Bro, what?
Yeah. What?
Make that make sense. Gentlemen, we cannot just have an amendment that says guns. What about guns?
Having them.
Love it. Smart.
Like, who is this guy? Why isn't he running this? Matt, I am open to discussing guns for a later amendment, but I must insist we move on to a more pressing concern.
You're screaming.
So angry. Sir, where are you from exactly?
America.
That's right. And there you have it.
Yes.
Smoke one for America if you got it today. God bless all of you. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you again at 0930 Eastern Time tomorrow, 8:30 Central Texas, America time. We'll see you then. I hope you have a good one. If you guys are sticking around on Rumble, we will drop you right into the American Radicals podcast, which is in progress with my friend Garrett O'Boyle and my buddy Steve Friend. We'll see you guys again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.